Hello, I'm Jo, and welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur Podcast, a new show that's all about building a business in midlife. This week, I'm joined by Lucy Yeomans, founder and co-CEO of Drest, the innovative fashion styling app that's transforming the way we interact with luxury fashion through gaming and technology. Lucy's career has been a masterclass in reinvention. From her days as editor-in-chief at Harper's Bazaar, where she redefined the magazine for a new generation, to leading content and commerce innovation at Net-a-Porter, she's always been ahead of the curve. In 2019, she took that vision a step further, launching Drest, a first-of-its-kind interactive fashion platform that lets users style real-world looks in a digital space. But like many entrepreneurs, Lucy has had to navigate the challenges, evolve and relaunch. After 5 years of growth, partnerships with brands like Gucci, Prada and Cartier, collaborations with supermodels like Kate Moss and Precious Lee, Drest returned in 2024 with a bold new vision, proving that the ability to pivot is what sets great businesses and entrepreneurs apart. I'm really excited to speak to her about adapting to industry shifts, leading through change, and what it really takes to build and rebuild a brand in such a fast-moving world. If you've ever had to rethink your business, this conversation is for you. Lucy, welcome to the Midlife Entrepreneur.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
For those that don't know, tell me more about what Drest actually is.
Drest is a mobile styling app which fuses elements of publishing with those of gamification to provide a participatory new media experience. So it's a way for brands and lovers of fashion to connect in a far more kind of exciting and immersive way.
What was the moment, though, that you came up with the idea? You've gone from offline publishing and magazine world, where Lucy was my editor at one stage when I was at Harper's Bazaar, and we had an amazing time. You transformed that product completely from Harper's and Queen, which was stuffy and a little bit old-fashioned, to something really rock and roll. And then, of course, going into the kind of world of Net-a-Porter, which was this digital brand, and you created all sorts of products that could immerse the customer, I guess the Net-a-Porter customer, and reach even further. Was there a moment when you were there, or did the light bulb happen after that?
I think a series of light bulb moments, if you like. So I remember the first time, firstly, like fashion, luxury fashion, gaming. Everyone, when I first said this and talked about this idea, thought it was probably slightly crazy. But I first got hooked on a game by someone who invited me to play this thing called Farmville on Facebook. And even though I have little interest in cows or pigs or horses or raising corn, I found myself very compelled by this experience. And then delving a little bit further, could see all these incredible games that had been created. And they had so much storytelling, but you were a protagonist. You weren't just sitting on the sideline, you were a protagonist. And then I think a few years later, I had the idea actually while I was still at Harper's Bazaar. I think I was at the fashion shows, and I remember thinking, this is like a game. We're trying to get the right photographer, get the right model, pull in the clothes. You're progressing through your sort of career path. And then I remember thinking, God, this would make an amazing game. There should be a game about this industry. And then probably at Net-a-Porter, I think we all know that the traditional publishing channels have dwindled. Either digital channels are very homogenized. They have to put clickbait content up to keep their numbers up, etc. Or print, which was obviously my absolute love and still remains a massive love for me. But just seeing those audience numbers dwindle and really seeing brands coming to us and saying, okay, we need a story, we need a campaign, we need something that connects with the next generation, and we need a sort of Gen Z appropriate campaign. And as I was thinking about this, and I could see the numbers of people playing games, we've stopped calling them gamers because I don't see myself as a gamer, but I play games. But the number of people who play games is now over 3.5 billion. So it's a bigger addressable market than the whole sort of entertainment, fashion industry combined. And just thinking, this next generation don't want to sit on the sidelines and be told what to wear by me or another editor-in-chief. They want to be part of the conversation. They learn through interacting, they learn through sharing their point of view, and sharing their point of view and being seen as an individual is really important for that generation coming through. And so as a content maker and someone that loves to inspire and connect with audiences, let's go into this space with a huge addressable market. and let's create something that's different, that innovates. And it is a real kind of new media experience that allows people to participate. And we both had children at home during lockdown, and mine certainly learnt how times tables by playing games.
Yeah.
I became editor of Harper's when I was 29 years old. I was learning on the job about the fashion industry. And if we could put people into that role, if they could have access to the brands, the models, the hair, the makeup, the incredible locations, the hotels, could we spin up that world virtually and allow people to discover it through play and through their own journey through that world? And that's really where the idea came from.
So I've been party to your ideas for so many years. I do remember sitting on the sofa of your office when you would say, and we want an elephant in the room and it'll be amazing. We could have a circus and it'd be so brilliant. And we'd all sit there and go, yeah, it's really amazing, Lucy, but we've got zero budget. And so I know how incredible you are at coming up with these ideas. So had the idea, you obviously, you had come up with this idea if you were sitting in the front row at fashion shows thinking, how can I connect all these worlds together? Then you have this incredible experience at Net-a-Porter where you create it. I think actually one of my favourite magazines ever.
I'm not fully entrepreneurial with Porter because it's part of Net-a-Porter, but to actually create a brand from scratch and really form that brand and what is the DNA of that brand, because it was part of Net-a-Porter, but it also had a very, it was Net-a-Porter was about the fashion, Porter was about the woman first, and then through the women's lens, the fashion was brought into it. So I'm so proud of Porter. It was my favorite thing. I remember the very first cover line we wrote on Porter, and I think it was almost like a mission statement. It was fashion to make you feel phenomenal. Yeah. So I've always had that. Fashion for me is something that empowers, it transforms, it gamifies, gives you a superpower. Yeah. We sit here today probably feeling slightly more confident because we're wearing nice clothes. And I love that power that fashion can bring to women. And I think probably if I look at Harper's, I look at Porter, and now I look at Drest, it's really focusing on the audience. It's putting them first. And then if the subject matter is fashion and beauty and culture and lifestyle, I think always I'm trying to inspire and delight her. She's the most important person that I'm speaking to. And I think that's probably the constant is really, everyone talks about your woman, but I'm always thinking of who am I making this content for and who is this person? And so that's probably for me the line that kind of, one of the lines that connects those three elements of my career.
And who is the Drest person that you're trying to reach with this product?
Really interesting because, as I said, 3.5 billion gamers, but who are they? So we now, I think, are all comfortable with the fact that they're not teenage boys in their bedroom, which took quite a long time with some of the brands. Although I have to say, there was one meeting where we went to meet the impossibly chic, she was then the global communications director for Miu Miu, and she'd worked at Celine previously. And I walked into the room 5 years ago to tell her about Drest and sort of saying, so gaming's a thing, And this impeccable, uber chic French lady just turned to me and said, of course, I play games every day. So I think that perception of who the gamer is something that I think a lot of the brands are suddenly understanding that there's a different type of person playing games, particularly as games evolve. Yeah. When I started out, I remember going on my way back from like New York Fashion Week, coming to give my nephews and nieces their kind of the quick sort of guilt present because I'd forgotten Christmas or something. And going into this dates me now, going into HMV and picking up some games for my brothers and not being able to find anything appropriate for my niece. So I think there has been an evolution in the people who play on these platforms because the products themselves have evolved. At Drest, you're not styling fantasy skins. You're styling the latest Gucci, the latest Valentino. You're using a hairstyle from Sam McKnight or a makeup look that's been created by Mary Greenwell, both of whom work for Chanel. So the audience is more sophisticated than I think a lot of people imagine. We find at Drest that the majority of our players are between 18 and 39. 29 is a real kind of hotspot for our users, but we've got users who are 18, we've got users who are 60. It's a real kind of mixed bag. But what's been interesting for our brands it's fascinating. You're seeing the likes of Ralph Lauren, Vuitton, all of these brands dipping into the gaming space, and sometimes they're working with a Fortnite or a Roblox or etc.
Yeah.
What we have is a qualified audience, because Drest is about fashion. It's about styling. It's about beauty. It's about the world of luxury. And we can have elephants and giraffes in there, and they don't cost anything.
It's music to my ears.
The idea of creating a shoot where it's all virtual means that we can let some of those kind of fantasy elements come in.
So you've got the idea. How the hell did you start? Obviously, you've evolved through to Net-a-Porter, so you obviously had an understanding of the digital space to a certain degree. But I presume that gaming is a whole new world that you didn't know anything about.
Yeah, I mean, I had a kind of funny journey. I always call myself like the reluctant entrepreneur, because I had a father who was an entrepreneur with various degrees of success and not. So I have always craved financial stability and security. While I love having ideas, the idea of giving up a very good career and taking a punt on something very new was completely so difficult for me, very challenging for me. I had talked a little bit about this idea. I actually had a big gaming company in the States who were very keen to back it. At times, I wish that's the route I'd taken. But now, when I see others who have worked particularly in the fashion space and have gone into an existing gaming company, they have failed, because gaming companies do not understand fashion. And to really deliver Drest, you have to have respect for the luxury industry, luxury fashion industry, beauty, travel, etc., and the gaming industry. And it has to be a fusion where each are given equal weighting. And that doesn't happen in other gaming companies. There's a thing in Korea called turning games pink. I'll take a boys' game and let's turn it pink and get women to be involved. And one of the most important roles I have at Drest is actually in product design. So I have a co-CEO who came from Candy Crush, and I have our most important meeting that we have beyond all the corporate other stuff is actually designing the product. Is it great for the game? Does it make sense for our brands? If we're designing a feature, is this exciting? Does this showcase new product? Does this expose this? So all the time, does this teach and educate the person about fashion, about how to style themselves, about how to do this? So we really have a meeting of minds. So at times, while it would have been nice to sell my idea to someone who would take it and make it for me and take away all the hard stuff I've had to do over the last few years, I took a different route. My investor is actually a great friend, and we would go on holiday, and I would probably bemoan the state of publishing and talk about this is the new way forward. And he's an incredibly successful business person in the UK. And he one day he discovered this one game, started spending quite a lot of money on it and started getting quite interested. And then one day said, let's do this. He had just bought, and this is an interesting one, he had just acquired an app development company and said, I think these guys could make this. Now, I remember at the time, because I'm very lucky in that I've got some very nice mentors in the industry. And I remember talking to Dan von Furstenberg and saying, do you think I should do this?
Just a small name there.
She's amazing, an amazing businesswoman, and a real kind of somebody that really supports women. And I've been very lucky to have her in a couple of critical decisions in my life. She's been really giving me great advice. And on this, she said, the idea is phenomenal. Your execution is going to be everything. Have you got the right tech partner? And the reality was, as we found out, we didn't. And this lovely app development company, yes, they could build a version. Was it scalable? Were we on the right platform? Did we have the right gaming expertise? No. But anyway, as my investor said, at least we got out the door and we put, that sort of V1 of our product out there. And that set me on the path to kind of entrepreneurism. So I was a reluctant entrepreneur, but we got there. And
And you're describing something that's really important, is that you've got to have the right people who believe in you around you.
Yeah.
Because it is really frightening going out on your own. You're coming from a career where you're taking a paycheck.
Yeah.
And there's an element of certainty in that, because of course, no job is certain. To completely doing it by yourself, but also going into a whole area, which in itself is developing. It's not like everybody knows about the tech world. It's just, as we stand, it's changing every second.
Yeah. Being involved in technology is exciting because of the very reasons you've just said. It's moving, it's fast-paced, etc. That also makes it scary. How do I keep up? You talked about, obviously, Drest relaunching in November. The platform we're now on couldn't have given us the fidelity of the imagery that we need to be the right home for all of these incredible luxury brands. So I think you have to think of it as something you have to harness and use it as a bit of a superpower. One of the things I love about Drest is that every 2 weeks the product changes. We can put in a new feature, we can optimize. I'm used to doing content or creating a product or creating an app that you design it and it works, and then you maybe update it like in 2 or 3 years' time. We are constantly updating new feature. Let's try this. The data that we're starting to get, and this is where like AI can really help you with insight, organizing your data, etc. But we're literally listening to the consumer, seeing what they like, don't like. Did they like that journey? No, they stopped. They put down their phones at that moment. Okay, what do we do differently there? How do we make that more exciting? How do we make that pathway smoother? And if I think back to our Harper's days, the only way you could really see how someone was responding to your project beyond your sales targets was going to a hairdresser's and watching them flick through your magazine and getting a bit frustrated when they flicked past your editor's letter and started looking at another feature instead. But on Drest, you can really follow the user and see what they like. So in a way, I think with Drest, we're co-creating it with our audience because we're just wanting to give them what they like and what interests them and what excites them. But we also co-create it with our brands, which is exciting. So it's, technology it's a big world to get your head round. And at the very beginning, we had a lot of challenges and we didn't necessarily have the right people. And I think we've talked about, and we both know the importance of people, but you have to have the right skill, the right expertise, but also have to have someone who really believes in the greater vision. Because if you've got someone senior in your game design or your tech team who just wants to make a game and really doesn't want to understand the nuances of how you fold in luxury strategy into that game so that this is something that's exciting for your audience and your brands who are passionate about this world, then you've got the wrong person. So I'm very lucky with my co-CEO because he was a GM of a small game called Candy Crush for several years, but he's also really passionate about this space. And I think we both see the game is the engine, but we're a much bigger car. We have a lot of people who get their fashion information from us. I probably should explain a little bit how Drest works. We have a concept which I came up with called RVR, Real Virtual Real. So everything in Drest comes from the real world. So the challenge feed, which is basically looks like a sort of Vogue.com feed full of stories relating to, if it was the Oscars last night or it was the Valentino fashion show last week, it's all related to what's happening in fashion. So you read your story, you'll understand what's happening, and then it's like over to you. How would you have created a look for the Oscars? What look would you have put out as look number one from Valentino, etc.? We are working with the very latest product drops from the brands. The hair and makeup, as I've already said, is contributed to by a variety of very talented artists. We're just working with EP10 Youngers, hairdresser who created special styles that he created for her for the red carpet a few weeks ago. So we're trying to make sure that everything is coming from the real so it feels really relevant. So if you play Dress, and we just did a partnership with Manolo, you're playing with the latest collection of Manolo Blahniks. They're in the stores, you're learning about them, playing with them, styling with them. Obviously, we then spin them up in this virtual space, which is sustainable, it's scalable, it's a safe place to come and discover and get creative and really get close to the product, touch it, try it on virtually. And then the final R, the final reel, is the fact that the user can go and either purchase that product in real life, or maybe they've just learned about it. Maybe they just learned that actually I'm a Gucci girl this season, or I'm a Stella McCartney girl, whatever it might be. And so there's that. And they are also educated about styling as well. So I like this RVR. And actually, we've done some quite exciting things recently, whereas all the brand partnerships that we've done since November, there's always a real world prize at the end. So some lucky person has just won some beautiful Manolo shoes that have been selected for them. And when we partnered with the British Fashion Council for the Fashion Awards, we had 4 of our players got to attend the Fashion Awards and walk the red carpet with Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. And so my vision is really how to open up this exclusive world to everyone. So I love that fact that beyond the ability to play with things virtually, people also have the opportunity to potentially actually end up with that beautiful Versace bag or attend that amazing event that only a few editors and VIPs might attend.
Yeah.
And that's probably the opportunity for a brand, because we allow them to take their experiences and allow more people to feel like they can take part in those events virtually.
And as you're speaking, energetically, you're so immersed in that world. I can see your energy is really up as you talk about it. And actually, as you were describing it just then, I could see Lucy as a child. It was almost like you were describing this incredible world that you could become part of. And it resonates for me because I spent many years as a child with my Cindy doll house, building that kind of world that she was to live in. And it was all centered around her wardrobe, which I used to make myself out of anything I could get my hands on, from cling film to tinfoil to newspaper or whatever. In those days, we didn't have that much choice. But there's something so magical about that experience that sort of, I think that we have, it's such a naive and gorgeous and beautiful experience that you have as a child. And then like, in a way, you're reliving that now with this as an adult, which could be just feel so incredibly sentimental, immersive, emotional, and exciting as well.
And that, I think, that's exactly it. That emotion you've just talked about is what I really wanted to do in this next phase of development. The first phase, we were allowing you to style, touch the clothes, get into the wardrobe and have that kind of, you could be styling an Oscar de la Renta ball gown that's £12,000 in real life. That was what we were trying to allow people to touch the product. But what in this next version, is wanting to recreate those experiences that we experience, and as editors, etc., that when a brand would whisk you off to the Great Wall of China for a trip, or a Chanel to Dallas, where you'd get on the plane with the double C's and you'd be gifted and you'd have this beautiful itinerary, or you'd be staying at the Ritz, or you'd be having these experiences, which was like the fantasy for an adult was to, and you'd come back from these trips completely in the world of Chanel. You'd been spoiled, you'd been looked after, you'd learnt so much about the collection, about the story, and you'd come back as an ambassador for that brand, a complete ambassador for that brand. And when some of those trips would come up, and they would say, what are you going to do in the magazine? And I would be like, I don't really know. I don't really want to tell them where I've just been. And I had a great time. I had a fabulous time. So again, like, you put the person you're talking to first. And so here, there's the ability to feel like you're the fashion VIP. Yeah. So you've rocked up at the right, style a look. You're staying at the Peninsula Hotel. Here's one of the top suites. Style a look in the Peninsula Hotel. Next stop, you're moving on to the cocktail party for the nominees for the Fashion Awards. So we're trying to recreate those beautiful VIP branded experiences. So it is a beautiful dress up part that I think we all have that sort of those kind of childhood memories of, but then taking the fantasy wardrobe, the sort of Julia Roberts moment, and then taking it on so that you actually are properly immersed in the world. Travel, hotels, luxury. Yeah. Being a brand isn't just about a product, it's about all the storytelling around the product, and that's what we wanted to bring to life, and what I think is the piece that the brands are now finding so powerful.
Yeah, and that's something that you've always done. The storytelling piece has been another thread that runs through your journey. What have been the greatest challenges for you personally through this? You've been doing it since 2019. So 6 years in, what have been apart from the kind of the reluctant entrepreneur, which you alluded to, which sort of, I slightly don't believe you in a way, Lucy, because I actually think that you've done quite a lot of quite large pivots. When, going to Net-a-Porter and doing what you did, when you consider that you were the editor of one of the glossy magazines in the UK, people would have thought that was a big risk actually at the time, even though obviously they didn't know what you were going to do. But that seemed like a risk at the time, because we were back in the days when magazines were really powerful, and you were obviously looking ahead and seeing things down the road that happened quite quickly actually after that. But it was quite interesting. So that was quite a brave thing to do. And then going from there and doing this, and just thinking about how to get that off the ground. So what have been the sort of personal challenges, apart from the reluctancy in a way, for the not wanting to be, like you said, stability was important to you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of practical challenges. Like, did it need to take this long to get where we are? A lot of challenges around just, you may think you've managed a team of, like at Net-a-Porter, 80 or 90. It's a very different thing running a team, a big team within a big organization to like starting out. So I think there's lots of challenges there.
Around people management and all that kind of
the running a business, actually running a business. You can't go to the head of people and say, what do I do? Because I do actually go to my head of people and say, what do I do?
How
a
many
lot.
people do you employ, actually?
But the head of people is reporting to you, so it's a different piece. We're about 65 at the moment.
What's a significant number?
Yeah.
Has that grown steadily over the period of 6 years? Or
It has grown. It grew larger, and then as we reevaluated, resorted our tech, redeveloped, we then trimmed it back. So we were, I think, at one point we were about 85, which was too much. Yeah. So you're running a business, and there's a lot of just cap tables, investment report, all of those things. Yeah. I just didn't know how to do those elements. But when I listen to you play back those risks in the careers, I just think to myself, like, why have you made everything so hard? I could have stayed at Harper's. I could have stayed at Net-a-Porter. But I think if I'm like brutally honest, actually, you're the editor of something, you know what you're doing, and then you're putting yourself into a new world where, yes, I love Porter, and I look back at it probably through the rose-tinted spectacles, but there were a lot of internal challenges to even make Porter, to create Porter, to get the industry to love Porter and understand it. At first, people said to me, you've sold out. You're just going down the e-commerce route. I said, no, I'm excited because they've got 6 million people in their audience who love fashion, and that's really exciting. What can we do there? So you're going into these roles where you're having to convince people about your vision. And then this last step is probably an even greater step because it's using a completely different vehicle to communicate and in a very different way. So that, I think, sometimes personally takes its toll because you're there, you're known for doing one thing, then you've got to rebuild, and then you've got to rebuild. And I think that's been quite challenging, quite tricky from a confidence point of view, those kind of elements. Yeah,
absolutely. And where do you find your energy?
If I have any left.
A lot of people have said that, sat in your chair and said exactly the same.
Got to keep paying the bills. No,
that is a motivation, isn't it?
It is a motivation. No, look, you have energy when you see your vision kind of accepted and embraced by others. My investor gives me energy because even when it's tough, he will see a glimmer of data or some numbers or metrics and it's like, this is so exciting. This is the potential. And so I went into a massive luxury brand the other day, one of the biggest. And we were pitching Drest and the UK CEO was there. And at one point she said, my 20-year-old daughter is going to love this. And then she went, scratch that. I am going to love this.
Yeah.
And often we'll have people say, oh, my 12-year-old would love this, or my teen. And when you have someone who's super sophisticated, very powerful, and they see the potential, I get huge energy. So when I'm out talking to brands, when I'm out in market, or I'm working with one of the big luxury hotel groups, those are the elements where I get a lot of energy from the brands. But the other thing that I have only just started to embrace, and I know you are very good at this, is looking after oneself. And where are we without our health? Where are we without our strength? All of those kind of issues. It's literally been a 2025 goal of mine, but I thought I really have to get some energy. I have to stop either working 24/7 or looking after my family 24/7 and actually put some energy into myself. So now I'm really taking time to walk and run and exercise and just taking a bit better care of myself, really.
I love that. Do you know, that's a bit of a theme. I've noticed that so many people I've spoken to have talked about the business with passion and all the things that we've got from you today, talked about the challenges. And then it's been like, and I've realized that I also need to, because you need so much energy to run a business. You need so much energy to constantly inspire and motivate people, particularly as everybody knows, it is not easy at all to do this. And you're trying to sell something to people that it's quite visionary. And although everybody understands gaming, of course, there's a mindset of, oh, but that's just played by teenage boys and blah, blah, blah. We know that not to be true. And interestingly, actually, when you were describing that earlier about gaming and the landscape of gaming, I was listening to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about one of the most successful gaming platforms in the world is the New York Times.
Yeah.
And those aren't anything to do with Fortnite or shooting people. It's all to do with puzzles. And I play that every day. Yeah. And I suddenly thought, oh, yeah, I am a gamer, actually. I've never even thought about it.
You probably like to complete. You might, if you do crosswords, you might like to learn. And we really do have people who come to Dress to learn about fashion. We've sold £12,000 of Lyre coats of people who've tried it on, played with it, and they've learned about it and they've moved, and that's their play.
Yeah.
But to your point about exercise and looking after yourself, I feel very grateful because my co-CEO in his spare time coaches very senior level of basketball teams in Sweden. He's Swedish. And so he is sports psychologist, is whenever I have any back problems, he's motion is lotion and get outside and let's walk and talk. And I actually told him the other day, I said, I've decided on Wednesdays when I'm at home in the country, I'm going to go and play tennis with there's a group of girls, the cardio tennis girls, they need a shout out. My country girlfriends who are amazing. And they play tennis once a week on a Wednesday morning. And the house tunes go on. We run around with a coach. We laugh. An hour and a half later, we're all exhausted and really happy. And the endorphins are flowing, or whichever way endorphins go. The serotonin is high. And I start the day at the office at 10 instead of 8:30. And I am a better person for it. Oh, yeah. And I told my co-CEO, and he said, you've got to do this. You were brilliant. You just had such energy all day. And so I'm very lucky that I have a co-CEO who's really clever and is a very sort of deep thinker and knows that to be successful in work, you also need to be healthy and full of the right energy.
Health is wealth. It really is. And you know what? So I love about that, Lucy, is the fact that because you're doing it, it will now be something that is role modeling for other people in your team. And you're coming back going, oh, I felt so amazing yesterday. It was amazing weather. We played brilliant tennis. We had such a giggle. And it just filters down because culture always comes from the top.
Yeah.
And we have to be there advocating for all of this for whoever works for us. And I don't have a team at all at the moment, but I do something on a Wednesday, weirdly. I go on to Wimbledon Common with a group. We have a fitness class. It's a strength class.
Yeah.
Energetically, it's just like it's like a lifeline. It's incredible.
I like it midweek as well because it just gives you a boost and it reminds you what life is all about. And we're doing this. Everyone says it's running a startup, founding a business is a marathon, not a sprint. But we do have to live while we're building. I think for a long time I was like, 3 years, let's build this. Let's build it. Let's make it a success. And then I can start living.
Yeah.
And I've realized that this isn't the way to live life. The journey has got to be fun. And we've got to be in good shape to be on that journey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What's the goal for this business? Or at least, do you have in mind a milestone that you would like to achieve at some point? You can tell me when. But is there something that,
I think we've got some milestones we need to achieve, not we'd like to achieve. I think on a very sort of top level, I think there's obviously our success as a business and bottom line and profitability and all those kind of elements. And then there's what have we built? What have we created? So on that sort of second point, I would really like this to be the world's biggest fashion discovery playground. This new media experience that is the place where you go to enter that kind of this incredible, highly creative and kind of world of luxury and fashion. And then obviously I would like my investor to feel like he's had a good return on his investment as I do for all the people who work for us. Everybody at Drest has a stake in the business. So I would like us to be successful so that we can all get a return on that as well.
That's the goal right now.
Yeah, that's the goal right now. Yeah.
I could ask you so many questions, but I have a little tradition at the end of the show where I ask all my entrepreneurs. It's called the 3-2-1s, and it's just a way of passing on some more advice, a little tidbits, a few learnings to anybody listening who has started a business or is thinking about starting a business or is going to jump out of corporate and do something completely different. And I hope it serves as an inspiration to them. So the 3-2-1s. So 3 things you've invested in that have been worth every penny.
So good people, really good people. And by good people, I think my understanding of what a good person is has also improved. So obviously you want people with the right skills and often the scars.
Yeah.
I've done some of these elements before, particularly when you're in an innovative space. Someone who's got the battle scars and has done an element of your business already is very useful. But I think also people who really buy into the vision, believe in the mission, and we're bringing two very different worlds together in terms of gaming and fashion. And so you want people who are willing to learn and get excited about the fusion. And there's lots of challenges in the fusion, but what are the opportunities in that fusion? So good people, and that can be my Caitlin, my executive assistant, who was with me at Net-a-Porter, and is definitely one of those people, but through to a head of people, through to my co-CEO, every single level of the business, you're looking for people with those elements. So people, good people is number one.
Yeah.
So the second element I've invested in is time for myself, which I've always been horrendous at doing. I'm definitely the person that, what do they say on the plane? Fit your own life jacket. Before I would have fitted the whole plane with their life jacket and left myself to the end. So time for myself, that late start on a Wednesday feels so wrong to me. I feel so guilty about entering the day just an hour or an hour and a half late. But that time with my cardio tennis girls is a highlight of the week. Just resets me physically, emotionally. It's amazing. That's something I'm investing in, and I want to invest more in myself.
Yeah.
Number two.
So valuable.
Number three, probably my child's wonderful prep school. It's got, when she's not boarding, she finishes at 6:30, and she's done her prep and she's had her supper. So when I pick her up, it's just quality time until she goes to bed. So that's amazing. And obviously because she can board in a kind of flexi way, if I'm traveling for work, I feel less guilty because I know she's at an amazing school with her friends in the middle of the country, riding horses and climbing trees and doing all the things that children should be doing. So my child's education is probably number three.
Oh, I love those. That's really beautiful. So 2 things you wish you had done differently.
I've spoken about this a little bit, but I really wish I had done more due diligence in the tech and gaming space beforehand. It slowed us down. Everybody said the toughest thing will be to bring in the luxury brands, and the tech and gaming should be quite straightforward and typical. The hard bit we did, and over 300 brands in the game now, and so just an amazing roster of brands. But just that gaming tech piece, we didn't get that right. And I wish I'd intervened sooner, and it wasted time for us, and time and money, and lots of learnings, but we definitely learned the hard way.
Yeah, definitely. But that's really amazing to admit that now. But I know you can look back and say, I wish I hadn't. Maybe how would you even know that was the thing that you need to invest more time in? Because you only know what you know.
Yeah. And as I said before, the tech has also moved on. It's a common misstep that people make to choose the wrong tech or the wrong this. And so it's a difficult space to navigate, but I wish we'd navigated that better.
Yeah. And what's the second thing? If there is one.
Yeah, no, the second thing is probably I wish I'd trusted my instinct more, whether it was about people, business direction. I almost feel like I was too respectful of what I didn't know. So we had one instance at the very beginning when my investor and I and the former CEO of Net-a-Porter, Mark Seber, who sadly passed away, but he was helping me at the very beginning. And I remember we were constructing this very complicated e-commerce deal as part of a sort of dress proposition. And I'm sat there with former CEO, that big words for me. CEO was a big business word for me. And this brilliant businessman, my investor. And we were doing this contract, and there was something that I thought was really wrong about one of the clauses. And I remember just being like, it doesn't make sense. That's not going to give us what we need. But then thinking, they must know. They're the business people. We've got a spreadsheet in front of us. And I raised it very quietly in a very quiet voice, and it not their fault, mine, because I wasn't strident enough about what I believed, but it was the flaw in the contract. And my investor always says to me, being a great CEO is a lot of it is just common sense and logic. And it doesn't need to be complex. And actually, if you think something's wrong, say it. So probably my most common phrase that I use in meetings now is, this may be a really silly question, but I don't understand this. And why are we doing that? So I think it, for me, like just trusting myself, the experience that we gain from doing one job yes, it may be related to fashion, but we learn a lot more along the way than we think about running businesses. And so I think that's something I wish I'd embraced that sooner and had that confidence about that sooner. Doubt is a good thing. Doubt questioning things is a power.
Yeah, everything you're saying it resonates so much, and it's so interesting that you bring that up, because I think a lot of people talk about, why didn't I trust my gut? My intuition was telling me something was wrong. I didn't understand. I didn't speak up. But you and I were brought up in a time where we weren't that curious, because you just did what you were told.
Yeah.
And even when I think back to my early days in my career, you never questioned anything, because the respect was always upwards. Yeah. And whereas I think the younger generation are way more curious, and they're more inquisitive around, why do I have to do it that way? Which can also cause frustration. But that you bring up such an important point, and it's something that I have heard time and time again from so many leaders. And I think there is this new curiosity, is this incredible leadership skill that I think more of us could adopt, because it isn't being stupid. The thing is, you're worried about, am I asking a question that seems really stupid? But the reality is that everybody doesn't understand it, but no one's saying it.
Yeah. And I think I remember at the very beginning, and I was bemoaning the kind of cap table negotiations with a very successful founder in the wonderful makeup artist Charlotte Tilbury, who's obviously achieved incredible success.
Yeah.
She was just like, we were talking about it, she said, you just have to be over everything. You have to read everything. You can't outsource things. If there is a contract, if there is a this, and I've learned that actually from my investor as well. He reads every single last piece of a document. If he's involved in something, he's reading it. So I think with that curiosity, there is also on us to learn and get up to speed on these topics.
Yeah.
So that I think is I was always send the lawyer in to negotiate, and I'm lucky in that my investor hates lawyers. So when I was negotiating, my lawyer would have to teach me, and then I would have to go in there and do it myself. But through doing that, I learned a huge amount and can now navigate my way around some of the more kind of spreadsheety elements of business, shall I say. And you have to. You cannot be in the dark about those elements.
No.
You have to. There are certain things where you really do have to. You do really have to be close to the detail.
Yeah, you can't be a backseat driver when you're running a business, and I think that's a huge challenge, because as you identified really well, Eric, we don't go into the world with all these skills. We have we have strengths that we've built up over time, and they're often our preferences as well, because we like doing it. We like storytelling, or we like creating the circus, or we like creating the fairy tale, or whatever it is. And then there are other things that are 100% not our preferences, and it doesn't mean you can't do them, but you have to polish and strengthen that muscle too.
Yeah. And it is interesting, because I sat at some lunch party next to this chap who I'd known for years, and he was on his third startup. And he said, and I said, oh gosh, you got burnt in the first one, and then I hear that happened. He said, yeah, it's great. I made my mistakes, and I've learned from them. So this time I've got it right. Yeah. So probably that's one thing. Another thing I would add, I know I'm not allowed to.
No, bring it up.
Being a lover of a format, I don't want to ruin your 3-2-1 by having a 3-3-3. But there are some mistakes that you've made, and I wish I'd known how to run a company. I wish I'd known how to negotiate. I wish I'd understood the importance of having legal representation here, there, or any of these things. There's some things where I think, God, I wish I'd done this before. Like, why? What? This is it. I'm putting everything on this, and I'm learning on the job. And I'd quite to have had some of those scars before I went into it.
I really like that expression of the battle scars.
Yeah.
I'm coaching people through these huge career transitions, whether it's pivotal or whether it's exiting or stepping up. And I think the fact that I've been through those pivots, and I've had many chapters of my career, it gives me that confidence that I can sit with somebody, whatever they're going through, and help them through that phase.
Yeah.
I don't think, when we talk about midlife, would you have done this 20 years ago, 15 years ago? I couldn't do what I'm doing. 10 years, 20 years ago. I wouldn't have had the experience. I wouldn't have the battle scars.
Yeah. And I think it's so true. And I spoke to a really clever person the other day, and they were talking about when you've lived through something, you're able to have a much more kind of nuanced understanding to like problems and think of solutions. And he said, if you haven't done something before, you've just got theory. And I see that in more junior members of my team. They just know this is how it's done. If I was pitching to a big luxury brand, I'd be like, I'm going to try it like this, because I've got the experience. So the theory might say, go and find a pipeline, but when you've done something before, you've got the nuance, you've got the experience to add to the theory. And so you can just navigate in a more kind of effective way.
But it is important. And it comes back to that question. If I said to you, Lucy, would you have done this 15 years ago? Do you think you were ready to do what you're doing now 15 years ago?
Definitely would have had some more energy.
That goes without saying,
Definitely
I think,
would
at
have had
midlife.
more energy and kind of probably a little bit more ambition of youth. But no, I think as well as experience, the other element that's just been so important for me is the relationships. Because through all these journeys, you build an army of supporters. And in my world, an army of supporters in that luxury world. People who will take the meeting, who will take the punt on the idea, and people who trust you. I had so many brands saying, I can't go into this space. And then they'll go, oh, it looks beautiful. It looks like a magazine. Oh my gosh, it's good. But you'll know what to do. And I take that trust really importantly. Every single decision, I'm like, the team will go to me, we're going to do this. And I'm like, you can't do that. The brands will hate it. Tell me I just know they will. So you have trust, and that goes back to relationships. And to me, people, whether they're working for you or they're in the companies that you're partnering with, building that army of supporters throughout your career is just so important, particularly when you're doing something a little bit different. And the strength of those relationships is everything. There's probably 10 people who have just made the biggest difference because they've just gone, you're doing it, trust what you do, let's go with it, I'm really going to push this forward. And that means a lot. I get a huge amount of energy from that when people are there for you, they show up for you, and they'll give you their brand, they'll work with you. So that trust, it's so important, but it's also, you have to be so careful with it as well.
That leads us really beautifully on to the final 3, 2, 1, which is one person you'd like to thank.
This one is really tough because, as I said, I think there's a big group effort. Family, girlfriends, male friends, colleagues, peers. But I think I am gonna say my investor. What I love about him is he's absolute genius. He's a deal maker. He's made his fortune several times over, but he has never built a product or built a brand. And I love his excitement for really building something different. And his belief in the absolute vision, in the absolute success of what Drest can be, has got us through the tough times, the tech issues, the various rounds of funding. And he still believes, and he really believes in the vision. He is my investor. He's also my co-founder. I should say that as well. He's my co-founder. And he's not hands-on. He's chair of our board. He's not hands-on in the day-to-day. But his belief in me has been huge. He's the one who keeps saying, no, you cannot move out of the CEO role into some nice creative director role where I know you'll be happy, because you're really good there. And you're a good CEO, and good CEO just goes where they're needed. It's not like Harvard Business School. You just got to be where the problem is, where the opportunity is. So I get a huge amount of guidance from him. And he's the least kind of, the way he delivers things, he's very frank, he's very abrupt. He's the opposite of a lot of the people I've had to deal with in my career. But I like it. And he's developed me as a person. And obviously he's committed to this business in a huge way. And it's really funny when we're doing a board presentation or investor presentation, he doesn't just want the numbers. He wants the magic and he wants the dream. And that's when he's amazing. And that's when he supports the business. So I'm really grateful for him. I really wish that he would listen to this. I've got to
What's
get
his
him
name?
to listen.
Can we give him a shout
He's
out?
called Graham Edwards. Yes.
Graham Edwards. Somebody
You
who
need to
knows
listen
Graham
to this.
Edwards, may pass on this podcast to him, because that would be awesome. That was a really impassioned sort of speech that you just made about him too. So I can see that it means so much to you to have, and you are so lucky to have that.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that a lot of people say, they sell to private equity, people who are there to make money, just to exit, and they don't understand the vision. They don't understand, let's say, luxury, because luxury is very difficult to understand for so many people. And I think people really misunderstand it. And you and I have worked in the industry.
Doesn't have easy rules.
No, it's all about relationships.
It's
Trust.
the opposite of a mathematical formula.
Yeah, and less is more, and most people don't understand that.
His investment team will go, But how do we know that the brands are going to stay? And how do we know that Lucy can get this brand and that brand? And what's the rationale? And I'm like, well, they trust. There was, when we did one of our contracts, there was a clause in it that said Lucy has to be in charge of the luxury feel of the product. If she's not, we're not in. So they trust. And so to have someone who puts a huge value onto that and fights for that value, for me, sometimes internally, is amazing. It's really amazing.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible. And again, energetically, your energy went right up when you were talking about it. And it comes back to clearly how passionate you are about this business, how much it means to you, and how it is the amalgamation of 20, 30 years of career and the vision that you've always had for fashion and how we work and play with fashion.
Yeah.
Playfulness has really been part of a lot of the stuff you've done.
Yeah, playfulness, and also that feeling of being a part of it. And probably when I was talking about what success would look like, this is a very exclusive industry, but it's also highly creative. It's full of some amazing, incredible people, some extraordinary talents. And yet a lot of people are frightened by this world. They don't feel like they can be a part of it. And if Drest can make everybody feel that they can be creative, they can be part of this extraordinarily beautiful world, then that's success as well for me. So it's allowing people to feel like they're part of this world.
It's a beautiful way to end the podcast. Lucy, thank you so much for being on the Midlife Entrepreneur.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into the show. And if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to click follow on your favourite podcast platform and leave a review. It really helps us reach more listeners just like you. Finally, if you're a midlife entrepreneur with an interesting story to share or would like to nominate a guest, you can do so via my email. All information will be in the show notes. See you next time.